the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Keith, and I'm going to pick your brain on just being a great running back for so many years and knowing the position inside and out. I wanted to pick your brain on just because Dylan Sampson's having a different kind of year for Tennessee, and it's something that I didn't anticipate just based on where Jalen Wright was a year ago. He goes in the middle rounds. He's having a good year for the Dolphins, and I think he has been the most complete back at Tennessee to this point. And I thought there'd be a slight drop-off, and there really hasn't, especially with the offensive line that Dylan Sampson's had to deal with and getting hit at the line of scrimmage. It's just been he's earning every little bit at Tennessee this year. But I wanted to, like, now that you've seen a lot of it and we're working together, you're involved in Tennessee, and you've seen that Heupel offense for a couple of years now. Jalen Wright last year, North Carolina guy. You're a North Carolina guy. You see, Tion Evans that freshman year, Jabari Small in the NFL now. Like, a lot of people think offense pass. This is a pass first scheme at Tennessee, but they run the ball really well, and it's obviously light boxes, and they spread you out, this, that, and the other. Thinking back to high school Keith, would this offense have intrigued you? Would you have enjoyed playing in this offense if this was the offense Georgia had?
I would say absolutely, man. If you look at kind of what you just went through over the course of the last year, the guys that have been a part of the program that have had success in college, that have now gone on to get drafted and are having success in the league, I think that is exactly what you are looking for in terms of somebody, as a high school player looking to where he wants to go play ball. And then you look at what my man is doing this year, and they're featuring him in a way in which a lot of running backs don't get the opportunity to feature nowadays, scoring all kind of touchdowns, getting to play in big, obviously, games in an amazing environment. So yeah, it would have been right up my alley for sure.
Do you, when you look at the light boxes aspect to it, like, what do you think? How do you go into that situation versus more the pro style that you're running at Georgia back in the day? What's different about it as a running back and how you attack it?
Well, I mean, there's obviously more space, and the matchups are a little bit more favorable when you can get to that second line of defense without having to have as much junk. You have an opportunity to break. Somebody like me, I was somebody that wanted to get to the second level and then be able to, once I got there, I felt like, okay, it's on. And so the higher the percentage chance that I could get there, I would have been excited about it. So there's no question. It reminds me of like back in the day when we used to watch Oregon when they first kind of introduced the spread, and they had all those running backs down there, and they weren't, the guys that Tennessee has not really comparable. They're much more brute type of running backs, can run the ball in between the tackles, but they had a lot of space, and so you saw a lot of lanes, a lot of opportunities to get big runs, chunk plays, which really don't see as much, I feel like, now from the running back position as we were accustomed to. So I would have, like I said, I definitely would have been a fan of it.
What about tempo? Like, Tennessee obviously doesn't rotate backs on a drive. Like, if you're in on one drive at Tennessee, you're in for that entire drive. If it goes 13 plays, 7 plays, whatever, would that have been intimidating for you, or as a running back you were like, no, that's awesome, I want to be on the field for the entire drive?
It's an interesting question, because coming out of high school, or really just forever, we never subbed running backs out. You were in. I played the game and played every snap, and then you get to college, and we did begin to sub more, and obviously you have kind of special packages in place for certain people. But I think maybe if you were accustomed to I do 4 or 5 plays at a time, come at somebody else goes in, then maybe it's a bigger challenge. But I mean, most guys, the way that they come up, you're playing. And so I don't think that you would view it as some type of a challenge. In fact, I think it's a benefit. Like, as you get longer into those drives and you're 10 plays in, defensive line is tired. You're not giving them a chance to sub in and out. They're not going to get us off the ball, or they're not going to be able to get off the blocks the same. So that's kind of a running back's dream.
What does Dylan Sampson remind you of? Does he remind you of yourself at all and how he attacks?
No, I think he's probably a little bit more physical than I was. Especially, he's older than, most of my success at Georgia was earlier on in my career, but he strikes me as a very, very balanced running back. Obviously makes the big plays, but he's a brute. He's lowering the shoulder and, getting those yak yards. So I'm trying to think of what a comparison would be. I had to think about it. He kind of reminds me of the guy Marshawn Lloyd a little bit, that was at Southern California last year from South Carolina. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I can do a one-to-one comparison, but I don't think our play styles were really that similar.
Yeah, I think you're more like Jalen Wright last year. And then you talk about getting the second level. He was just so, once you got to the second level of Jalen, it was just because he was a track guy first, right? Like he put on a lot of size over the years at Tennessee. And he was like an all-time great 3-star success story at Tennessee, because he turned into a feature back last year. But his role gradually expanded over the course of 3 seasons, but he put on the size, he put on the weight, and he kept his speed. Did you, as a running back, is that something you always have to like kind of be wary of as you get stronger going from high school to the college weight room and the calories and everything you're eating to like, yeah, I understand like the coaches want me to put on weight so I get injured less and can take the hits at the college level, but I also want to maintain my speed because you were a speed first guy. Was that hard?
Funny, I wouldn't say it was hard at the time. You kind of did what was called for and asked of you. I do think that, now in retrospect, I would have approached it differently. I was always somebody, to your point, that I think what made me special was I was fast. Like once I, nobody was going to catch me. I wasn't the biggest guy. I did put on weight, and I had a big frame so that I could grow into it. But I think I probably did that a little bit too fast in college. And then like in the off seasons, the training were very much tailored towards, strength and conditioning for football. Whereas the way I grew up, it was like we were on the track all summer. And so I was maintaining that track speed as well. So if I could go back and do it again, I think I would have approached it a little bit different and really leaned into what, differentiated me. But again, I think at the time, the strength and conditioning programs were a little bit cookie cutter. Everybody did the same thing. It wasn't like, hey, you have this type of physique or you're this type of an athlete as a running back, so you need to have this tailored type of a program. We got into that more once we got to the NFL, but in college, everybody was doing the same thing. So, I did that stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. Was there anything that changed for you in terms of like what you learned like early on versus later on at Georgia in terms of your like off-season program to like balance that out?
No, and then especially me. So one of the, my backstory is I had pretty significant knee injury actually in Knoxville, but even before that, I had really bad tendonitis, and so it was something that I managed, starting my senior year in high school, and then, and so I had a little bit of a unique training regimen in comparison to some of the other guys in terms of a lot of the rehab that I had to do, but. Again, like I think some of that could have been avoided if I would have had a different training program altogether that was kind of more specialized to some of the things that I was dealing with. And so in terms of like taking care of my body, I got more cognizant over, how do you eat, how do you recover? Because, we had people in the program that were teaching us those things. But in terms of the actual work itself, I mean, we did what the coaches had on the board to do that day,
What was the hardest thing to cut out in terms of eating? Have you always eaten clean, or were there things you were like, nah, absolutely not. This is staying with me.
I didn't eat great in college. I didn't really start to do it because we had like, and now it's much more structured. So whenever I was there, it was like we got to go to the dining hall. I mean, in dining hall, they had everything you want. So, every day I would get pizza, chicken wings, tater tots. Like it was not
every day.
More than I should have. I used to love omelets. I mean, you got to think we were working out like crazy too, but
yeah.
I used to love omelets, so I would get those once or twice a day. And like I said, we were earning that food. But
you're like the Rock over here, where you like the Rock's daily itinerary. This is sounded like the Rock here in terms of your caloric intake.
I could have did better. Like the one thing that I was very disciplined. I worked my tail off. I did everything people asked of me, but I did not because it wasn't like taught into me growing up. I was telling people this, like in high school, what I would do is, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense now. But, to eat healthy. So I used to always go to Bojangles, North Carolina kid, Bojangles.
Yeah. What's your Bojangles order?
Well, I used to get the 3-piece white meat chicken dinner, right?
Okay.
And so me eating healthy was getting the white meat instead of the dark meat. It's still fried. I don't know why, but that's what I thought. So as you can see, I was a little bit off in that category.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it feels like now, like everyone is just so regimented. Like it just seems like everything is just like kids are taking care of their diet at a younger and younger age where they're just so prepared for it.
It's such a big part of it, though. That's what I'm saying. I definitely feel like, I wish I would have paid more attention. And like once I got towards probably like my senior year at Georgia, they brought in a nutritionist and we started having a training table. And so you started doing testing to see what you needed. So I was kind of in that transition period to where it is now, to where like, when I got to leave, we did a blood test and you knew, these are the foods you can eat. These are the foods that are going to, reduce swelling. These are the foods that are going to, lead to swelling. Like this is how you recover. Like it became actually a part of the craft, which was new for me,
Yeah. When you think of, because this is something I've thought a lot about with Kerryon Johnson at Auburn in 2016. I think he had one of the more forgotten great seasons for that Auburn team, and what he did with Stidham and company. And they beat Alabama.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.